So this is part 3 of the American Colonization Society in Liberia. So we now have a caste system, but there's still this fight with some indigenous populace, and then we need to expand our settlers colony, and we need to grab lands. So the figure that's a key that's instrumental in this is Jehuda Ashmun. He was a white American religious leader and educator, and he became very pivotal during this period in expanding the settlement. So, and how we know this is that it was a very detailed account, and it was written by somebody named Ralph Randolph Gurley, who was an advocate for the separation of races and a major force of the American Colonization Society. And it details his journey to Liberia and the western part of Africa in general in 1822. And in this biography, Garley writes about Ashmun's time in Liberia and how he used very aggressive negotiation tactics to increase agricultural production, how he annexed more lands from neighboring tribes and exploited commercial opportunities in the interior. Again, that's the inlands of Liberia. Okay, so reading directly from the Columbia History Journal, it says that he built the defenses of Monrovia against attacks by indigenous tribes as well as against slave raiders to ensure the security of the settlement. Furthermore, Ashmun actively pursued commercial opportunities in the interior of Liberia, remember that's inland, seeking to exploit natural resources and establish trade networks with the United States, Great Britain, and Europe. These endeavors often involve the exploitation of indigenous labor for infrastructure projects and agricultural endeavors. So as you can see, this is going to create, again, a lot of tensions with the settlement and then the indigenous population. So again, like the indigenous people are now like having land seized from them, and they're about to be put through like exploitative, like laborious practices. So again, with these practices, it's kind of fueled racial tensions, and within this racial tension, the indigenous population was at the bottom of the hierarchy, with the Americo-Liberian elites at the top of the hierarchy. Okay, so prior to the Americo-Liberians' arrival, there were 16 ethnic groups, and they all had their own like customs and community ways of doing things and dealing with issues. So we see that there's some free labor going on of the construction of roads, and then the Columbia History Journal says the free labor for the Spanish island of Fernando Po. And how this was accomplished was that the Americo-Liberian exploited the division, because again, they've been sowing division between the indigenous groups by having allyship with one and favoring one group over the other, so creating infighting between the indigenous groups. But they've also started to have political control, cultural dominance, economic exploitation, and forced labor. And then McKean Stewart, who was an African-American visitor in the 1880s, noted that the relationship between the natives of Liberia and the American immigrants mirrored that of former slaves and Southern whites in the United States. Okay, so in the next video, I'm going to talk about the labor scandal, where we commonly see the pictures of where the indigenous populations were kind of enslaved, and then Firestone's involvement. And I know that Firestone is a hot topic depending on who you ask. Some people were like, Firestone was the good old days, and some people were like, fuck that shit. So yeah.